everybody. It's Tuesday, October 13th, and we are back with another episode of Nonprofit Executive Spotlight. I'm Cecilia Sepp. I'm a certified association executive, and I'm the principal and founder of Rogue Tulips Consulting. We work exclusively with nonprofit organizations of all types, and we're very pleased to offer this series for our colleagues in the industry who are in transition and seeking that next great opportunity. Today, I'm here with a longtime friend and colleague, Jamie Beaulieu, who is a membership expert, but brings so much more to the table. Welcome, Jamie.
Thanks so much, Cecilia. Thanks for having me on the Nonprofit Executive Spotlight today.
So you mentioned that you see yourself at the intersection of education and member value. Can you explain to the audience what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a 20-year association veteran, and I have experience in many domains within an organization. But with that said, my primary focus has really been on building member strategy, component relations, and more recently in professional development. I understand when I say that I see myself at the intersection of education and member value, it's because I understand that for an association to be truly relevant, it needs to ensure that its value pieces are recognizable by members and prospects. I have a real passion for helping to propel industries and the people within those industries, and I think that's where the education component comes into place. And I think this is a real area of opportunity for associations to make their mark within an industry.
So you are a membership expert, but you also have a lot of experience working with subject matter experts. Now, can you give us a little background on the benefits of having a nonprofit management expert like yourself working with a subject matter expert?
Yeah, absolutely. My theory really is that everybody has their role in a project. My role as the association leader is to build the strategy to support quality education. I want to build an arc, if you will, to ensure that the resource, the course, the webinar, whatever the project is, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's delivered using the appropriate, most impactful mechanism. And it's communicated to the right audiences. So that's what I bring to the table. The volunteer leaders that I work with are the subject matter experts. And it's my job to utilize their knowledge where they're best positioned to provide it. So in the example of program development, it would be through a needs assessment and what content to cover for the intended audience.
So one of the other areas that you're an expert in and have worked in frequently is component relations. And for those people in the audience who aren't quite sure what that means, we mean chapter relations. Most people say that. So what do you think is the most pressing issue right now in the area of component relations?
Sure, yeah. There are a lot of them. And I think primarily the biggest challenge for components, for chapters or affiliates, is really staff. In a lot of cases, and many of the situations that I've worked within, the components are led by volunteers. They are people in the field, and they volunteer their time to run robust programming at a local level. I think that what I have tried to do throughout my career in working with chapters is make sure that the national or the headquarters association is giving those components what they need to be valuable and relevant to their members. I see chapters and affiliates as such an important piece of the whole organization model. The headquarters association can't be everywhere at once, and it behooves us all to use those chapters and affiliates in order to meet people where they are in their local regions. So I try to assess exactly what they need to be relevant in their areas and build the resources and deliver the programming for them to leverage and utilize.
So what is your approach to a component relations network? So for example, many years ago, we were all talking about the Starbucks model. And so that you go to every chapter or affiliate and you have a similar experience, but it's got a little unique twist. So that's one example of a chapter network approach. So what might yours be, or what is your favorite if you don't have a specific one?
Well, actually, the model that you just laid out is one that I use often. An example of a programmatic approach there are toolkits that I've developed in the past, where the theory is that 90% of the information is common and 10% needs to be customized for that particular area or for that particular audience. And so what a toolkit was a PowerPoint presentation, if you will, that covered a certain topic of relevance. And the presentation itself laid out, um, slides with data and talking points so that the person that picks up that toolkit um, needs to, spend an hour or two getting themselves ready to deliver it. And the presentation itself also has the flexibility to be altered in whatever way in order to have that relevance for that particular audience. We found a lot of success with this model of information dissemination, and it's one that has been used globally, and had relevance in different on different continents and different states throughout this country.
And so if you were explaining to somebody why a component relations network is important, and if you're wondering why I'm asking so many chapter questions, I am a longtime component relations professional myself. I don't think we ever stop thinking of ourselves that way. But what do you think, how would you explain to somebody why it's important to have a strong component relations program if it's an organization with that type of system?
Sure. I think that it's increasingly important, especially when you consider a pandemic, when we can't meet, we can't have a big global meeting to bring everybody together. The component has that local flavor, that local flair that a national organization or an international organization just can't do. Um, Pandemic or no pandemic, if you have a local chapter that you're supporting as a headquarters organization, then your organization actually has the ability to meet several times throughout a year, while the headquarters organization may only be planning one of those.
So when it comes to having the CAE, we both are certified association executives. So why was it important to you to earn the CAE designation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm a big cheerleader of the certification, so I'm happy to extrapolate on this. I personally started the process of the CAE journey because I was looking to advance in my career.
Mhm.
And what I ended up getting from it was so much more. Um, the little letters after your name, yeah, they mean something, most certainly. But the actual process and journey of earning that credential was just phenomenal. I learned so much more than I ever thought going in. I also met so many people who I likely wouldn't have met, made a lot of connections. And I'm now part of, a community of practice, if you will, of other association professionals who really strive to make the most of the profession and lead.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly. I just renewed for the second time and do quite a bit
Congratulations.
of, oh, thank you. And do a lot of CAE mentoring, actually. So I think that it's very valuable to bring in somebody who has a CAE. I think that it demonstrates a commitment to professional development, a commitment to your career in the long term, and it demonstrates that you understand the core of our profession and how we do it, how we practice it. So
I think
uh,
that's right.
I think that so, and you did bring up the P word, the pandemic. So which we can't ignore that. So
Nope.
kind of bringing it back to the broad umbrella of membership and looking at that. Um, in component relations, many times, if it's not part of that department or area within an organization, they're definitely linked because it's generally a member benefit or something like that.
Sure.
So with the pandemic, what are some ideas you might have for keeping members involved, keeping them engaged, and showing them that it's still worthwhile to belong to the organization.
Sure. Um, I think that being relevant during this pandemic is probably the biggest task of any organization, and also the biggest opportunity.
Mhm.
Organizations that have taken advantage of rallying their members together during this time um, are succeeding for sure. Um, I think there's, if I were to offer the ways to go about doing this, um, delivery is the biggest area here. If you were not doing virtual programming before the pandemic, you better be doing it now, because obviously virtual is the way that we meet these days. Organizations that already had these kinds of tools and uh, uh, delivery mechanisms under their belt that already started doing these were in good shape when we started, when the pandemic started earlier this year. And it's a time, it's just a time and a good opportunity to bring everyone together, let your members know that you're there to support them. COVID has an impact on everybody, on every industry, on every person, and finding that link of how COVID impacts your members and and educating them on, or keeping them up to date on the information of that, of that impact is hugely important. Again, it's a great opportunity to create more member engagement within your society or organization, and just a great way to build affinity for your membership.
Well, and I think what this pandemic is also showing us is that the member experience has always been virtual, whether or
Mhm.
not we thought of it that way. They didn't come to the office every day. Maybe they called you on the phone. In the old days, we used to send letters. Now we do email. Maybe we even text them now, which I think is a lost opportunity if you're not texting. But I think that's a really good point, because it's a great way to bring people together in this virtual world that we're all living in.
Mhm.
And so we're down to about our last 2 minutes. These episodes go so quickly. So we've learned now that we can have a remote workforce in the nonprofit area, and we've learned that, hey, it actually does work. And yeah, you can tell that people are working, which is my pet peeve comment. I'll just say, folks, it's like if you say I can't let people work remotely because I don't know if they're working. Well, no, you do know if they're working because they're getting their work done. But what do you think is the future of the virtual organization for nonprofits? Do you think that we'll see more completely virtual organizations, or do you think we'll see more hybrids?
I personally think we're going to see more hybrids.
Mhm.
I think for the near future, we're going to see a lot more virtual, maybe for the next year or two. I think it's going to be a while, even after there's a vaccine for this virus. It's going to be a while before people are really comfortable being in large crowds, and I think that's um, a really important factor for all organizations to be considering, that even if it's okay to meet in person, people may not be ready for it themselves. But ultimately, I think there is a value in an in-person meeting, and I think most people find value in human connection.
Mhm.
Uh, and and I think that if we're all really smart about putting in the work now to make sure that our virtual experiences are as impactful as they can be, that we'll find a future of hybrid meetings where we can simultaneously engage two audiences at the same time, while making both audiences feel as if they're as much of the experience as they can.
And that is a great thought to close on. I want to thank Jamie again for joining us for this episode of Nonprofit Executive Spotlight. Blah, blah, blah. Nonprofit Executive Spotlight. Yes, even us experienced hosts get tongue twisted sometimes. But Let me thank Jamie again for joining us. Jamie's a longtime association executive. She brings lots of experience. So talk to Jamie about how she can join your team and help your organization grow. So Jamie, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I think LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach me. My contact information is all within my profile. Love to hear from you. Thank
Great.
you
Well,
so
thanks
much for
again.
having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us. All right. Well, that's all for this week's episode of Nonprofit Executive Spotlight, and we'll hope to be back next week. Actually, we hope we're not, because that means people are getting hired. So until next time, folks, we'll see you then. Episode